Right. Welcome everyone to today's AI ethics seminar, which, by the way, is the last one before a long summer break, and then we hope to resume in August or September. Today's speaker is Maria Hedlund from Lund University, who will talk about forward-looking expert responsibility for AI development. So if you have questions or comments during the talk, my suggestion is that you put them in the chat and we can then bring them up during the Q&A that comes afterwards. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. This presentation is based on a previous project of mine on AI and responsibility and on some initial thoughts on how to possibly proceed in thinking about AI and democracy. Basically, I will address a dilemma that the governing of AI gives rise to, namely that the need for expert knowledge may compromise democratic values. Intuitively, it may make sense to claim that AI experts should be responsible for the technology they develop. But to what extent and for what? And with what consequences for democracy? I will try and provide an argument for why it is reasonable to assign forward-looking responsibility for AI development to AI experts. Specifically, I will focus on responsibility for unintended consequences that go beyond the aim of the technology when the technology works as it is supposed to work. And I will problematize the argument for expert responsibility from a democratic perspective. Generally, an expert is someone who possesses specialist knowledge that is accepted by the wider society as legitimate. Such a broad definition allows for many different kinds of actors to be covered by the notion of AI experts. Researchers and professionals working with AI development, researchers studying AI development, policymakers, civil society actors involved in policy processes on AI development, and many more. In this presentation, I will primarily discuss the responsibility of actors with first-hand knowledge about the handicraft of AI technology. More specifically, AI researchers, for instance, computer scientists, mathematicians, cognitive scientists, developers, designers, programmers, engineers, and other technology professionals working with AI. These experts on technological aspects of AI play important roles in development of AI technology and the functioning of applications built on AI technology. The AI technology that these actors develop often comes with huge benefits for society. But AI development also entails risks. For instance, surveillance systems aimed at decreasing crime and increasing security may violate privacy and individual freedom. Algorithmic bias sometimes leads to discrimination. Algorithmic content recommendations may increase polarization and harm democratic deliberation. Although AI experts typically not intend to cause these harmful effects, the question is if they could foresee negative effects, or rather, if they should foresee them. Should AI experts have a responsibility to anticipate possible unintended consequences of the technology they develop? And should they be responsible to mitigate or prevent such consequences? When I talk about responsibility in this presentation, responsibility refers to moral, forward-looking responsibility. This means that I will not talk about legal or political responsibility. And it also means that I will not talk about responsibility in a backward-looking sense, commonly known as accountability. To be responsible in a backward-looking sense, you need to have caused a blameworthy situation freely and knowingly. But forward-looking responsibility is another kind of responsibility. While backward-looking responsibility is about the past, forward-looking responsibility is about the future. Forward-looking responsibility refers to the moral obligations to act or not to act in a certain way to ensure that a desirable state of affairs will occur. For this reason, requirements for being responsible in a forward-looking sense differ from being responsible in a backward-looking sense. One thing is that causality plays a different role. If we understand forward-looking responsibility as an obligation to bring about a certain outcome, such as a safe and democratic development of AI, forward-looking responsibility does not necessarily mean that the responsible actor herself brings the outcome about, only that she's responsible for this outcome to happen. So this looser causality requirement means that there are other grounds for distributing forward-looking responsibility as well. To be effective, distribution of responsibility needs to be fair. So fairness and effectiveness are key values when we talk about distribution of forward-looking responsibility. And depending on ethical theory, there are many different suggestions for grounds for distribution of forward-looking responsibility. For instance, equality or guilt or benefit. In the context of expert responsibility for AI development, it could be relevant to distribute responsibility according to the principles of ability and contribution. With that, I don't say that there are no other bases, but for this presentation, I will focus on these two bases. The ability principle, sometimes called the position principle, states that actors with the ability to affect the future situation in a desirable way have a responsibility to do so. In the context of AI development, this ability may include, for instance, knowledge, money, or influence. Generally, the responsibility of experts doesn't differ from the responsibility that all of us have to bring about a desirable future. However, in relation to non-experts, experts have a superior ability within their expert domain. According to the ability principle, this implies that AI experts have a larger responsibility to bring about a certain outcome within AI development than the rest of us. The contribution principle states that an agent who has caused a bad outcome is responsible to put it right. In the context of AI development, the contribution principle could mean that those who work in a field or on a project that risks harming safety and/or democracy have a responsibility to contribute to leading the development in a more, or at least not less, safe and democratic direction. In their ordinary work as engineers, AI developers, or programmers, AI experts make practical use of their expertise in a way that has direct or indirect societal consequences. According to the contribution principle, this suggests a special responsibility for AI experts who design and develop the technologies. AI experts directly and indirectly influence the technology as such. coding and design produce certain functions that affect our behavior and the way societal institutions work. This is a reason why it is important also to consider effects beyond the immediate technological concerns of the AI expert. Certainly, AI experts are always responsible for the quality of their contributions, but could they also be responsible for the consequences of their work? Philosopher Heather Douglas asserts that scientists are responsible for the consequences of potential error in their work. More specifically, she argues that scientists are responsible in a forward-looking sense for the foreseeable consequences of their claims, whether intended or not. For instance, what is worse? Claiming that face masks prevent the spreading of a virus if they turn out not to prevent or even worsen the spread of the virus, or claiming that face masks do not prevent the spreading of viruses if they turn out to actually do so. In either case, a faulty claim would have some bad effects on the spread of the virus. For Douglas, it is the responsibility of the scientist to weigh such consequences before they make the claim about face masks in this case. Someone has to make the choice, and compared to non-scientists, scientists have the best ability in terms of knowledge to make this choice. If we accept Douglas' claim about the responsibility of scientists, could we then extend this responsibility also to experts who are not scientists? I believe that we can. Similar arguments could be put forward regarding AI experts. Their knowledge about AI technology, how it works, prospects for further development, possible applications, is very specialized and not easily attainable for people outside the AI domain. Hence, also AI experts possess a superiority within their area of specialization that is comparable to the superiority of scientists in their areas of expertise. Therefore, if we accept Douglas' claim, it's not unreasonable that AI experts should be responsible in a forward-looking sense analogous to that of scientists. But how about responsibility for unintended consequences that do not depend on potential error, but on the contrary, occur just because things do work as intended? Consider the algorithmic selection bias, so-called filter bubbles or echo chambers, that emerge as an effect of how algorithms recommend users to content that is supposed to maximize platform usage. While the rationale behind such algorithms is to sell targeted advertisements, the effects may go far beyond the displaying of ads that attract the user's attention and eventually lead to a purchase. These algorithms direct users to content that they are assumed to prefer. This does not necessarily reflect a representative picture of the world, but a picture in which the known becomes more known and which differs between users. The algorithms have worked as intended, effectively providing the user with pertinent content. But the effect is that different users meet different worldviews. This makes democratic debate and mutual tolerance more difficult. If users are likely to see more of what they are already seeing, they may not even encounter narratives different from their favorite one. They do not get confronted with much resistance to the views they hold and may get the impression that everybody agrees with them. This is detrimental for the democratic debate in several respects. exchange of different opinions, which democratic discussion basically is about, disappears. Tolerance of diverging views, a basic requirement for a truly democratic society, may decrease. The idea that deliberation, in the ideal Habermasian sense, refines standpoints is even more difficult to implement. And John Stuart Mill's idea of deliberation as a way to sort out faults and find the truth would be impossible. The algorithm has worked as intended, but when implemented in real-world situations, it has unwelcome consequences. Is the programmer of the recommender algorithm that has this detrimental effect on democracy responsible for foreseeing and preventing this effect? Unintended side effects are often referred to when errors occur, but in this case, no error occurred. The recommender algorithm worked as intended. Rather, things happened outside the scope of the original intent. Should our AI expert have foreseen this consequence of the algorithm and so have a responsibility to minimize the harms to the democratic debate that the algorithm indirectly gave rise to? One answer to this question is to point to the notion that technology is never neutral, but incorporate judgments. Designers and engineers make decisions about specifics of the technology they develop, decisions that have consequences for users. Search engines and social media algorithms are programmed to lead the user to content they have already shown preference for. The echo chamber effect that this may entail can have consequences that go far beyond the immediate comfort that makes the user stay longer and make more clicks. This implies that technologies can contribute to the moral decisions human beings make. And to talk with Verbeek, creates a specific responsibility for designers. Following this way of arguing, our AI expert should be responsible for what the algorithm makes people do. But it does not tell us how far this responsibility extends. Responsibility theory points at two requirements for deciding whether an actor is responsible for preventing unintended consequences of their actions: recklessness and negligence. Someone who acts recklessly is aware of risks of a particular action, but acts anyway. Someone who acts negligently, on the other hand, is unaware of the risk, but should have been aware. A reasonable person reflects on the risks, while a negligent person does not bother to think about potential consequences of their action. And I would suggest that our AI expert has a responsibility to avoid both recklessness and negligence that may lead to unintended consequences. I have argued that experts have a special responsibility within their area of expertise by virtue of their expert knowledge, which equips them with the ability to bring about a certain outcome in this area. Hence, they have a larger responsibility than the rest of us to avoid potential harmful side effects of the technology they develop, given that they could foresee them. Could they foresee them? How could we tell? For those of us who are not AI experts, it's difficult to judge whether an unintended consequence would have been foreseeable. Would this suggest that we have no choice but to rely on the experts? If the AI expert could foresee the unintended side effect, then she is responsible. If the AI expert could not foresee it, she is not responsible. Or something doesn't feel right here. It's not completely satisfying that an actor can get away from responsibility simply by claiming lack of ability. The kind of responsibility I discuss for AI experts, that is forward-looking responsibility for contributing to, or at least not disrupting, a safe and democratic future, implies that AI experts should have the responsibility to spend reasonable effort to foresee effects on safety and democracy of their constructions. Is this effect on democracy something that the programmer could do something about? Probably not in the immediate practice, but should she do it? Here it is important to point out that the individual AI expert is not the only candidate for responsibility. AI experts do not act in a vacuum. Investors and consumers certainly contribute to the direction of AI development by demanding certain functions. Nevertheless, without the knowledge and expertise of the AI expert, these functions would never materialize. To some extent, the individual programmer is responsible for the formulation of the code, but she acts in a context. There may be many coders working together. They have a boss who tells them what code to write. They work for a company that has a certain idea of what to accomplish. This code is just part of a bigger system in which corporations strive to meet expectations from consumers and shareholders. Certainly, there is a connection between the work of the individual programmer and the effects on the AI system that she is contributing to. But it's just part of an entirety. The contribution of the individual programmer may not play a role at all, if not considered within the context in which it is produced. Responsibility would need to be assigned collectively to all actors contributing to this AI system. Collective responsibility is, however, a contested notion, as collectives are not moral agents in the same sense as individual sentient beings. But let us tentatively regard AI experts as a professional collective with moral agency. Would it then be reasonable to assign forward-looking responsibility to this collective? It's probable that AI experts as a collective together had the knowledge and oversight to be able to foresee potential harmful side effects of the technology they develop, including detrimental effects on democracy. And if they do, it could be argued that they have responsibility in a forward-looking sense to avoid these side effects. But having the ability to make a difference does not say anything about the moral right to decide which values should be promoted. Philosopher Zeynep Pamuk questions Douglas's assertion that it is the responsibility of scientists to balance the value of different consequences. Scientists are not political representatives. Scientific qualifications are not relevant to making judgments in the name of other people. Scientists cannot know what public values and preferences are. Values and preferences are formed through processes of contestation, deliberation, and compromise in the public sphere. It would be wrong to conceptualize democratic values and preferences as pre-existing facts to be guessed. Few, including myself, would argue against these claims. Still, as I have tried to show, there are good reasons to assign some responsibility to those with hands-on knowledge of the technology they develop. But Pamuk problematizes this. She urges us to look at the process of knowledge production. The way researchers study a question, she argues, decides how it is understood in society. It frames the public debate, and it has an impact on what appears politically feasible and thinkable. Since the assumptions and choices that researchers do during the research process builds on valuations of what is important, and since available science affects which politics is made possible, it is these values and assumptions that should be the object of democratic scrutiny. Translated to AI development, we could, for instance, think about democratic scrutiny of decisions to develop AI in the first place, instead of dealing with existing or approaching AI applications as a given and trying to find out different ways to make them ethical, human-centered, or fair. This would, however, be to turn the current debate on ethics and governance of AI upside down. Instead of asking how AI can be advantageous for society, we would ask, what society do we want? Could AI be helpful in this regard? However, that will also need expert knowledge. And with that, I thank you for the attention and can conclude that all my cuttings I made in the last minute were unnecessary, because I see that I have some more minutes to go. But this is what you got today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Let's give her a round of applause, virtual or otherwise. And we have plenty of time for Q&A. I'm going to stop the recording so we can speak freely.